What's going on, everybody? Your boy is back with another video. I am currently in Sydney, Australia. Um, Actually here for a cross-country world championship, so I didn't have the time to trade today, but I'm gonna just take you guys on a little journey on what I do when I'm not trading, but I want to learn and practice my chart reading skills just from looking at the price action, and we're just going to do that. We're going to do another bar by bar analysis, so let's get into it. So initially, there was some news in the morning. Obviously, we can draw our uptrends, draw our downtrends, but it's just a lot of volatility that we want to stay out of. We had an uptrend, so we still didn't get a new high after the break of this uptrend. So in my head, right off the bat, I haven't even looked at the rest of the price action on the day, but I'm looking to potentially see if there's some sort of trading range that will form and that we might eventually reach this high of the day. But until then, let's see what happens. So we have a second entry long right here. Obviously, we don't want to take that because we're below the EMA, but we have this short-term uptrend, and we have a first entry long, second entry long. Let's see if we can get a higher low. But we end up just having a break and a new low of this short-term downtrend. So let's just have this short-term uptrend, something like that. So we break new high of the short-term uptrend, break new low of the short-term downtrend, and it's just very, very congested. We're at these lows. Let's see if we end up bouncing out. We go lower and lower and lower. And we could potentially draw downtrend like this. Looks pretty valid to me. But like I kind of went over in my previous video, if we just zoom into the most recent price action, all it is congestion, a mini range, mini trading range. So even though there's a potential wide-term downtrend, I like to really focus on something like this short-term trend followed by a break and a new low and just congestion. So in my head, this downtrend is essentially or potentially over, and I don't want to just be taking any short setup until proven otherwise. So we obviously fall out the bottom, and right around here is market open. Now that we have a continued trend, we can draw our short-term downtrend once again. Something like that looks pretty valid, but I'm even going to draw something more short-term. So let's go with this for now. Break, new low of that as well. But let's just have this wide-term trend just to give us an idea of what could potentially be happening. But even if we draw trend from these highs, let's see how accurate it can really be, because we got a couple bounces on the top. That looks as valid as it's going to get, but it makes sense that we're bouncing here. We're at the lower side of the trend line, so we can either go to the top side or we can just bounce out. Let's see what happens. So we're looking for a second entry short potentially at the EMA. So we have a second entry short right there, but it's a bad signal bar. We're away from the EMA, and we have prices reacting towards this top side of the midline or the trend channel, and some more congestion. So at this point, we have a second entry long, but once again, looks very, very congested. So I still don't see any setup that interests me. Let's draw our short-term uptrend. And at this point, once again, let's check on this short-term downtrend, see how valid it is. In my opinion, this really isn't valid because there's only one touch on the lower side of the thin trend line. So in reality, in my head, I'm thinking, okay, we have break, new low, followed by more congestion, followed by more congestion once again, failed breakout at the top, and we have a potential second entry long. I don't know what happened in real time, if this bar broke below or above the one previous to it, then below, then above again, so it could be a potential hidden second entry long. I do kind of like that trade, but we didn't get a trigger above it, so let's see if we get a second entry long. We do indeed, but it's just a lot of congestion once again, and then we have a higher low here, but it looks pretty congested. We're at these highs. I would just stay away from any of this. We have a first entry long, second entry long, failure, trap, higher low, but we're just at these highs. And we do potentially have a failed second entry long here. I mean, we do have a failed second entry long right there, but I wouldn't take this trade as well just because we're at these highs. We had a break and we're looking for a new high, obviously, but we're already at these highs, so you really don't know what's going to happen. So I would avoid that trade as well, but I'm just marking it for purposes of marking it. And now at this point, let's shorten this uptrend. Let's draw another short-term uptrend right here. So we have a break. Let's see if we can get a new high of this. So we have a first entry long, and we just keep on going higher and higher and higher. So let's draw another short-term trend. We can draw something like this. Let's have that for now. If we zoom out, we're getting towards the previous resistance. So what I like to do in this case, let's see if this was really just a measured move, and the midline might actually be here of this trading range or potential trading range. If we go to the bottom, go to the top, my next target is this midline. And we might just have to reach it. So we have a first entry long, second entry long. That looks like a pretty good trade to me. And it worked out. So now we have a break and a new high of this short-term uptrend. We might have some wider term trend, but really nothing that is too accurate. Yeah. So we really just have the short-term uptrend, first entry long, second entry long. That to me looks like the first really great trade of the day. And we just end up resuming the trend actually. So once again, let's draw a new uptrend. We're looking for a second entry long once again, and we did in fact hit this potential midline. Let's extend this range. See if we can get another second entry long. We don't, but we have a break and a new high, followed by a continuation of the trend. Something like that. So we have some congestion. So really a break and a new high. Let's see if we can draw some sort of wider term uptrend right now. This really looks like we're just at the top side of this trend channel. If we draw a midline, we could be bouncing off the midline right there. Yeah. So now this is a very interesting point. We have a new low here, first entry short, second entry short, failure if the next bar breaks above that. Off of the midline, and some traders might want to take that in real time. Maybe I would have taken that. But if we also draw this congestion, it's very, very stacked up. So let's see what would have ended up happening. You can argue for this trade. Um, it's actually a first entry long, second entry long. So because of that, I'm just going to mark it. But it is congested, and I usually like to avoid any trades, even if there's one red flag. Right now there is congestion, but it rocketed up. So in that case, I know in my head that, okay, the price action is telling me that, okay, yes, that was a very, very good trade because the results prove it. So now I can kind of look back and think, okay, when there's a first entry short, second entry short failure, also combined with a first entry long, second entry long, you might want to take that trade, especially because we're at the midline. It's bouncing up and down and down. Now let's see if we get another second entry long. We do get a second entry long, but once again, we're right near these highs. Let's zoom out. This bar is very, very big, so I would avoid that once again. And that would have been smart to avoid it because you would have got one tick and you would have got trapped. So that's why, like I said, with this trade, even though it worked out, price action showed you it worked out, you never really know with these congested trades because once again you're just at the top of this short-term trend line once again. But in reality, I could even draw my short-term trend like this. So we had a break and a new high of it. So we're really not even looking to go long anymore, even though we're in this wide-term trend. If we got rid of that wide-term trend once again and just zoomed into this price action, all it is a potential trading range. So we might even want to think about prices potentially going back to these lows. So right now we have first entry long, second entry long. See if we even get a second entry long failure. We do, but it closes above the EMA, so we must avoid that trade. But we actually do have a lower high right there. So let's see if that trade would work out. So we have this short-term downtrend. We have a first entry short, second entry short, and a lower high. So I would actually mark that trade as a good short setup. And yeah, that makes sense. And wow, look what prices ended up doing. So that's why I like to say it makes sense to avoid these trend lines or these wide trend channels a lot of the times because it could mess with your head and keep you thinking, okay, I'm just going to look for longs, look for longs, look for longs. Even though if you just focus on these short-term downtrends, then you might want to look for a short setup. So we have this short-term downtrend. We don't have a break, or we don't have a new low after this break. We have one leg up. So we have one leg up, second leg, and second entry short. And wow, look what happened with the prices. So price action works. All you need is one great trade a day. You can get an incredible runner. I mean, this thing went from 4162 all the way down to, wow, that could have been almost a 40-point runner depending on how you played it. So once again, let's just draw our short-term trend. This looks very nicely fitting. Break, new low. There's even a hidden second entry right there. If we draw this short-term uptrend, there's a break, new high. So we can treat this as one leg, two legs. But in real time, it might be tough to discern that, but let's see what would have happened. I mean, obviously this is just not live, but let's see if we just analyze bar by bar. So we have this very, very, very strong downtrend. We have our first leg up. So if we're just drawing our trend from that point, it can be clear to us that we just stall, have a second leg up, perfectly at the EMA, second entry short, hidden second entry short technically, but what happens? We end up bouncing right where we expect to at the low of the day or near the low of the day. So now, once again, we're expecting for this downtrend to be over so we can look for a failed second entry short, because even if we look at this micro trend, it really is just downtrend, overshoot. Now let's draw a short-term trend once again. See what happens. Okay. Extend it. First entry short. Second entry short, failure if the next bar breaks above this bar. However, it's below the EMA, so we have to skip it. But also, we're not even looking for a second entry short because, like we already discussed, the short-term downtrend is over. The wide downtrend is over as well. So anyone who went short here is probably trapped. My intuition tells me that we're probably going higher, but let's see what happens. And it ended up working out, but once again, you really want to skip that trade below the EMA. So now, once again, let's draw our short-term uptrend. In reality, I don't even like that as an uptrend. I like this as short-term uptrend, break new high. Now we might just get some congestion, so let's see what ends up happening. And exactly as we would think, we get some congestion. We can even draw this mini congestion right here. So obviously this is just not in real time, but in real time, this is what I'm thinking. I'm trying to analyze the price action live, and also it allows you to analyze the language of the markets and then predict, or at least have a educated guess or calculated risk of what's going to happen next. So right now, I mean, we don't really know what's going to happen exactly. We're at the low of the range. We're expecting to go high again, but also we have break and a new high of this mini trend, and we're also in this sort of congestion. So we can go up or we can go down. We just want to wait and see what happens. So now at this point, we have a failed breakout. So, I mean, obviously, I just saw what happened, but this is honestly a decent trade, just because if we're only playing this, if we zoom in, only look at this, we know the uptrend is technically over, the downtrend that we were just in is technically over, so now we're just playing this mini congestion. This obviously is way too stacked, but once we break out the top, have a rejection bar, that looks like a very nice trade. Then we even have lower high. It is at the EMA. If this had closed below the EMA, I would say that would be a great trade, but let's see if we get a failed second entry long. Not quite. So there we have a second entry long, because we have a first entry long, second entry long. It is a breakout pullback pattern, and we do have a break and a new low of this short-term downtrend. So that honestly looks like a pretty good trade, but let's see what the risk would be. So it would be from about 28 to, so yeah, the bar's way too big, but my intuition is going to tell me that because it's a second entry long, we're going to go up. But what I've also learned from trading is that sometimes, actually a lot of the time, that there's big bars like this, traders will get trapped. So we see a rejection right there, and you wouldn't have got trapped, but it didn't look like a very great trade. So now we're at these lows. First entry short, we went up again. Second entry short, but just a lot of congestion still. So now let's see what happens here. So we have this short-term uptrend. We have a break and a new high. If we extend this sort of range, then we can see that we're bouncing there once again. So this honestly looks like a pretty good trade to me. If we're coming from this low, it's also first entry short, second entry short. And it would have worked for 1 point scalp, which is why we only go for a 1 point scalp. It actually would have worked for 2 point scalp if you use the limit order. I'm going to mark that trade. It's pretty aggressive, but still working. It still works based on range rules. I would not take this trade because even though it's a breakout and we expect breakouts to fail, we were just rejected by the EMA when we technically, if this trade would have worked out how we would have thought, we would have reached the bottom of this short-term trading range. So I would skip this failed breakout. Obviously, that would have been an excellent trade, but when prices just rocket down like that, a lot of times it will go too fast for you even to get a trade in, especially because I use limit orders. But now, once again, let's draw a short-term downtrend. We have a break, new low. We just keep going lower and lower and lower. So now we can look for a failed second entry short. So we draw uptrend. Technically have a break and a new high. So now this is a very interesting spot. If we have our wider term downtrend, it looks something like this. So we technically have a break and a new low and a break and a new high of this short-term uptrend. And we also have a lower high right here. But it can also be counted as a first entry short, second entry short, and a lower high confirming the second entry short. Let's see where we are in the grand context of things. We're expecting to potentially retest this low once again, but it does look congested here. So in my eyes, we really just have one leg down right here, a break, another leg down, something like that, and then a break and a new low. So I would also avoid this trade. And it would have ended up working out, but you never really know in these cases. And finally, we end up bouncing out. So now at this point, we're expecting prices to potentially go higher, but we just have to follow these short-term trends and see what ends up happening. So because we bounced out once again, let's draw our short-term trading range. And honestly, now that I drew the trading range, I mean, it depends at what point you draw this trading range, but if you had this drawn at this point of the day, you might say, okay, this is a really good trade right there. We have new low, first entry short, second entry short. This looks like two clear legs. We've already bounced here several times. This is the third time, fourth time confirming that, and we end up going down. Draw our short-term downtrend yet again. And let's see this trade. So we have new low here, break, new high, first entry short, second entry short. So this honestly looks like a pretty good trade to me. Let's see if it worked out. I mean, based on the next couple bars, I don't think it did work out. It didn't, but honestly, if you took this trade, if I took this trade, I wouldn't knock myself for it. Looks like a pretty good trade to me, even though the downtrend is over. We're playing the range rules at this point. We have this short-term downtrend. We're still looking for a new low. One leg up, two legs up. Looks like a good trade to me, even though it didn't work out. Sometimes it just happens that way. So now we have a first entry long, and then we end up, okay, now prices are starting to go up. So let's draw a short-term trend, break, congestion. Let's draw a range. So once again, if you had drawn this congestion and you'd seen this breakout, you can argue for this trade, but it's all depending on how you're reading in live time. And there's another potential failed breakout. Ended up working out. Looks pretty choppy. So what time is it at this point of the day? It's around 10 a.m. Pacific time. But just looks like a lot of choppiness. I actually do like this trade right here. We have matching high, first entry long, second entry long, failure. But it is a very, very big bar, so I would skip that. But context-wise, it looks very good. And now we end up pushing higher and higher, okay? Let's draw our short-term uptrend, break, new high. This looks like one leg down, two legs down. See if we can get any nice trade. So we have one leg down, two legs down, first entry long, second entry long, failure potentially, but not touching the EMA. So I would skip that. Prices just continue to be very choppy. Okay, so now if we're coming from this low, we have a first entry short, second entry short, failure, but I don't know. Anything here really just looks very congested. Honestly, I'm very tired. It's nighttime around here. I'm gonna just call that a video. I got no energy. Peace out, guys.